Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Tonight is the May 8th, 2014 meeting of the East Fishkill Town Board. We are in work session. Work session is where the town board meets so we can discuss matters of importance to the town of East Fishkill, and we discuss these matters as a group in a public forum. So if you will please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, thank you very much. First on the agenda is announcements. I have two announcements tonight. The first announcement is brush drop-off. Brush drop-off will be open on Wednesday, May 14th. The hours are 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., and Monday through Friday and Saturday, the hours will be 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Vehicles aside from cars and a small trailer to a six-wheel truck are free. Vehicles larger than six wheels have to come into the clerk's office and get a pass. It's $15 for a large truck. Let me just see here. Proof of residency will be required. You have to show it at the gate. You have to have a driver's license or some proof of residency. But brush drop-off will be opening Wednesday, May 14th. Just to let everybody know. I know it's been a topic of conversation lately, if you will. Got that written down, Marty?
Where?
Oh, I'm sorry, the brush drop-off. I'm assuming that everybody knows. Brush drop-off is across the street from the town hall next to our Hamlet sewer plant, and you just drive right in there and you go in the back, and we'll have signs out front here on 376. So thank you very much, Marty, for pointing that out. The second announcement I want to say, the Palin Road Bridge is closed. I think anybody who's traveled on 52 has noticed the increase in traffic. I know coming here, leaving here after work has gotten tough. When I go walk the dog at 5:30 at night and try to bring him to the rec, I usually have to wait through 5 cycles of the light. But Dutchess County is fixing that bridge. 6 to 8 weeks to fix guardrails. So we encourage the county to do a good job. And if it have to replace the bridge, I'm going to hate to see how long it takes. But please hope that they do hurry up with this. But I will say one thing, everybody's been very patient. I've noticed the traffic moving along very well. So that's all of my announcements for tonight. The first discussion on the agenda is to discuss a redevelopment GEIS, and this had come up because obviously with as we see with the economy the way it is, a lot of vacancies, especially as we made the IBM complex and the old IBM West complex, we made that a priority economic redevelopment zone because IBM has 50% vacancy in their site, and of course Lanao is pretty much vacant altogether. This creates a problem. Now, as I said to the board back in January, I got a call from a commercial realtor. Could I come out to the West Complex and meet with a group? He said it was a Fortune 500 company that's looking to locate a warehouse somewhere along that Route 84 corridor. So I went out there and I met with a small busload of people, all in suits, with laptops and such. And I gave a little speech about the West Complex. The one question that came up is what permits are required to build a warehouse here? And they had just come from a site in Connecticut. So I told them what the requirements were and what the advantages of doing work in East Fishkill and things of that nature. And they said, thank you very much. And after about a half hour, they drove off. Speaking with our planner who's with us tonight, Michelle Robbins from AKRF, I was talking a little bit about it. And she pointed out, the funny thing is if you're in Connecticut doing a project, you don't have SECRA, State Environmental Quality Review Act is a New York State mandate. In Connecticut, you don't have that. They have rules and regulations, but SECRA being approximately a year, or maybe over a year-long process and very expensive to identify all these environmental issues such as traffic, water, sewer, and all that, it's much easier. Well, bottom line is, they're probably building their warehouse in Connecticut as we speak. So we lost out on a possible project in the town of East Fishkill. So we're talking further, understanding New York has a lot of laws, SECRA being one of them. If you want to come to our town and you want to do a development, if we can do something up front to lessen these regulations as far as doing a generic environmental impact statement, we'll make a project coming into the town much easier. If a developer or somebody wants to build a big warehouse or a commercial facility, doesn't have to go through, say, a year and a half long review process for SECRA and the many hundreds of thousands of dollars that it could cost, they're more likely to come here. That being said, I've asked Michelle to, and I want to discuss with Michelle Robbins, our planner, she works for us on a regular basis, what we can do about making the process easier to attract businesses to our industrial redevelopment priority area. Michelle's actually brought up, she made a copy of the Village of Pella Manor Planning Achievement Award, where they had somewhat the same issue, where they had industrial properties that the town went ahead and they rezoned and they made certain standards, and they made it from an old industrial to two very successful commercial sites. That being said, Michelle, I do want to talk a little, would you like to give us just a little brief overview about what a generic environmental impact statement could do for the town as far as a redevelopment situation?
Sure, I know most
and you have to pull the microphone because you speak very softly, so you have to pull the microphone close to you.
Okay.
So I don't have the guy in the
waving at you
going like this.
I know most of you are pretty familiar with environmental impact statements, and a generic environmental impact statement is along the same vein. However, it's a type of EIS. It's a different type of EIS that is typically used to consider broader-based actions or related groups of actions, and it's also more conceptual in nature. So I prepared a brief handout, which I think you all have in front of you, and I won't read it verbatim, I'll just hit the highlights. But essentially, a GIS can examine the environmental impacts similar to a regular EIS, quote unquote, of a sequence of actions by an agency or a project sponsor like the town, such as the adoption of a comprehensive plan followed by a zoning change followed by the construction of a shopping mall. And the reason you would use a conceptual document is because when you're analyzing a zoning change or a comprehensive plan, you don't know the specifics of the project that's going to come in under that zoning or under that comprehensive plan. So you're actually analyzing an envelope, a reasonable worst case scenario for a particular project, or if you choose to do a master plan for a site, you're analyzing a potential build out. So you decide what you want to see on that particular site, and you say these are the thresholds we'll accept. This is the traffic that the site can accommodate. This is the height we want to see in this location. Maybe there's a buffer that you want to add in a certain location. Maybe we'll allow retail here, but we really don't want to see it here, whatever it is. And you can really specify those things in a plan, create zoning and ordinances that will create that scenario for you, and then you actually analyze that in an EIS. When a developer comes to you, they will come in with an application, and if that application fits within the thresholds that you've examined in the EIS, then they don't need to do seeker, because the seeker's already been done via the generic environmental impact statement. So it expedites the process quite a bit. And essentially, how could it support economic development in East Fishkill? It reduces uncertainty for developers and for the public and the town. It allows the town to be proactive rather than reactive, and it provides really a greater control of the development process as a whole. So in other words, typically we see developers come in with a plan, and they come to us and they say, we want to do this here. It may not necessarily meet zoning, so they come in and they ask for a zoning change. And then we start on this cycle. And sometimes it's via the seeker process that we find out that there may be an unacceptable impact related to what they're proposing to do. But we find that out after they've prepared very expensive engineering drawings and they've gone down the line. And what I have found is that they typically do not like to, once they've invested a certain amount of money, they're invested in their plan, whatever it is. So they're less likely to come back to the table and talk to the town about what they may or may not want to see changed. And with a generic environmental impact statement, you're sort of saying, this is what we will, this is what we want to see here, right, and this is what we will allow. And if you can make your project fit within here, you will have an expedited process, essentially. Now, they can also still apply to do whatever they would like to do, but then they would be required to meet seeker. and
Right,
they would
right.
have to still go through the process. So they could technically say, well, we want to put this here, and we still want 10 stories higher than you want to allow. And then they can still apply for that, but they have to go through the process, and they're less likely to get approved.
But two things I think that this process really does for it is, number one, being proactive. I don't want to, be honest with you, I don't want to sit here and turn around in 3 or 4 years and have another vacant industrial property in the town of East Fishkill. If we can take steps ahead to preempt this, I think we're way ahead of the game. But what this would actually do, would give us the chance to say, and we would have to have a lot of input, this is what we want to see. And this is where we'd have to sit down and say, okay, this is going to be the plan we're going to present. We're going to get public input and stuff. But this is what we would like to see as far as rebuilding our economic base. And on the other hand, it also, as you say, a developer wants to come in, they're going to say, you know what, SECR's already been done. I know I can do this here. And I'm just coming in for a simple site plan, and it expedites the process for them. So in my mind, it meshes. It meshes for the town's best interest and also for anybody who'd like to come in and make an investment in our town.
It also gives the public a level of comfort, because once they will understand clearly what the town is considering for a particular site, and they won't necessarily be surprised by a development application. Well, I mean, any development application could come before you,
Right.
but if they understand that this has been analyzed, they'll have a better understanding of what is they're expected to see, or what could
Yes.
potentially be on a site.
Yeah.
And you could even include, say you had residential sensitivity in a certain area, you could include in the environmental impact statement that to avoid noise and other impacts to neighbors, we have created a buffer in this location, and therefore we're leaving 300 feet of open space to prevent any impacts to neighbors, or
Yep.
something like that. The other thing that the document does is, obviously it saves time and money for a developer, expedites the approval process as long as everything meets the thresholds and conditions of what's set forth in the GIS, and then also provides more of a predictable and clear process for everyone. And it provides potential developers and investors with guidelines. You could even include design standards. And that could be specific to a certain location of the area that you're considering. If you're considering rezoning or a plan for an area, you could say, well, along this corridor, we want to see buildings that look like this. We don't really care what things look like behind that, because no one sees that. So those are the types of things that you can get,
Yeah.
and it gives you a level of certainty and a level of control over
Yeah.
what happens on a site.
If you don't mind, I'd made a couple notes that I didn't get a chance to share with Michelle, before we did this. But because of the two sites that we're discussing now, the old IBM West complex and the IBM East complex, they've already been through SECR, right? They've already got approved site plans. So thresholds have already been established as for amount of traffic, heights of buildings, all that. So in my mind, Michelle, and correct me if I'm wrong, that a lot of these SECR issues have already been proposed and approved in these two site plans. So we're not doing a generic environmental impact statement from the ground up.
No.
And I was going to ask you, what are the things I would think, would the way to start being get the IBM site plan, get the West Complex site plan, see what was approved, see what SECR has already addressed, and we could actually set out guidelines that this is a traffic that this site can handle, and the same for the others. I mean, it would we wouldn't be starting from a blank page. We already have something to build upon.
Well, because it's a unique situation on that particular site, because you've already had a site that was operating at a much higher capacity, so there was a certain level of traffic associated with that site at one point. And you could say in this document that that's the level of traffic that we will accept, and we don't want to go any higher than that,
Yeah.
or you could choose 80% of that, or
Right.
or whatever it is.
And I would assume in our GIS, so what we would do is we go to our traffic consultants and just have them update that. Say these were the traffic flows at that time, because there are certain things have changed in the traffic patterns over the last years. The closing of the at-grade crossings on the Taconic Parkway have actually shifted traffic patterns throughout the town and the county. So, that's something we would revisit, but we don't have to go in, start all over.
No, I mean,
we can just re-examine that and update it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you probably would start out with some sort of theoretical build-out for the site. So you would say, you know, if we did this type of zoning, we would have X amount of commercial space and X, and then you associate a level of traffic with each of those things. And as long as you would probably always have a number in mind that was acceptable as far as traffic level.
Right.
And then you would sort of tailor the zoning to get to that traffic level if that was your concern, if
Right.
traffic was the issue.
Yep.
And you could do that with a number of different types of issues. You can use the GEIS to sort of set your thresholds, or to understand your own thresholds for what you would accept as an impact.
Yeah.
And you may realize as you're going through the process that, hey, this is something we didn't think about, an unintended consequence, so maybe we need to reconsider this and go back and tweak what we originally thought might be good here, and say, you know,
Maybe that's not really good
maybe
here.
we
Let's
shouldn't
look
allow
at-
this density
yeah.
here. Maybe we shouldn't allow this height here, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that it helps you flesh out all of these environmental issues and planning issues before you have an application in front of you.
Right. And as you say, somebody has got so much money invested, then they kind of dig their heels in.
Right.
They don't want to change. You know, I've gone to this point, and then they want to fight. We don't want to fight. We want redevelopment, and we would like to set the stage ahead of time. So I think that this really, to me, seems like a very good way to go.
And it really helps them understand what is required of them, and also which really saves them time and money, and that makes it a much more attractive place to go.
Yep. Any questions for Michelle?
I would encourage you to look at the case study in Pelham Manor. It was one of the first projects that I ever worked on. I mean, I know Pelham Manor is a much more urban, you know, this was a much more urban area, right on the border of the Bronx, but it was an old industrial area. It had contamination issues. They could not do anything there. They had a number of car trips right by that location. It was on Boston Post Road. Similar to 84, you have a lot of passerby traffic, and they were trying to attract people, and it took 12 years ultimately from the start to the end.
Yeah.
But they've had very successful, thriving, and I think I gave some statistic about their taxes in there, and how it helped the town.
The ratables, yep. And again, this, obviously, GIS is not going to happen overnight. I mean, Tom, we did one, when we first took office here, we did a generic environmental impact statement, I think on the wetland laws and some of the other zoning ordinances.
And that was a modest one, because it was like one issue, really. Just
Yeah. So this is going to be a complicated endeavor, but I think it's something we really need to get involved with, because otherwise, if we don't do this, like I say, we're going to have somebody coming in that may want to develop in the town of East Fishkill, and they're going to want to do it their way. We want them to come in. We want them to do it a way that benefits both of us.
Well, how long does something like this take?
From start to finish. I mean, it depends on how long of a process it takes for you guys to come up with a concept for the site itself. And I would encourage public involvement in that process.
Absolutely, there's going to be public involvement. We'll have public hearings on it, and yes.
And so that can take a bit of time, but it sort of depends on.
I'm thinking a year from now, we should be pretty well along.
I think you can. I would say a year to 18 months is what I would say.
Well, I'm thinking sooner the better, because this just falls in place with all of our other plans with our priority economic redevelopment zone.
Yep.
Dutchess County now is offering marketing dollars for those type of zones that we qualify for.
Yeah, yeah.
We've discussed this with our economic development team going forward. I think that if we could also market that we have a GEIS, that's
Well,
even better. We look even better for companies to come.
When you talk about that, I mean, we've discussed, we have a lot of good things going for us in the town of East Fishkill. Nobody knows about us. You know, Toll Brothers knows about us.
Right.
We don't need any more big houses at this point. We need an economic base. So I got to agree with you. I mean, if you go out there and say, look, we have this plan. This is what's approved. We've already done secret for you. You can come in. It's a very big incentive for somebody to look at the locate. We are on one of the very busiest corridors, Route 84, through here. So I just have to think that, you know, we can move this along, we can take it, we can be proactive
Right.
in shaping what the industrial redevelopment is going to be.
And I do just want to caution that even with the GEIS, they still are required typically to do an EAF, but that's a much shorter process, a much easier process.
In short form.
And a short, well, it's actually it is actually a long
The
form.
short, long
but
form?
Exactly, it's
Oh.
much shorter. And I did, in fact, even do an EIS where there was a generic EIS, and the person and the developer came back with a slight change from what was analyzed in the GEIS.
Yeah.
And they were still allowed to go under an EAF because it was determined that the change was not significant enough, and what had been analyzed in the GEIS still covered it.
Yeah.
So there is some flexibility, and that's the other thing. It does allow a lot of flexibility for the town and for people coming to.
So I think it's a great
business.
idea. What I would propose to the board tonight, just a couple things. Number one, Michelle, I'm going to need a proposal. We're going to need how much is this going to cost us? Because we didn't budget for one this year,
Right.
but we will be continuing, obviously, into next year, as far as budgeting for it. If you can give us a proposal, I'd like to share it with everybody and go over it further. Also, I think I would just like to start with the basics if we could. And I think we probably do that, getting the two site plans, seeing what the thresholds were, buildable area, and that kind of stuff. So at least we'll have a baseline to start with. And then we can go from there. And then we can sit down and we will have public input meetings. We'll have the board. I want the board very involved, and probably one or two members of the town board. Or maybe I think what I'd rather see is the town board to rotate and sit in with you and take a look, and then another couple of members come in. So everybody has input, bring it to the public and show them, our thoughts on it, get their input. But if we could just start off with the basics, with finding out what's approved there, as far as traffic, height, buildable areas, flows, that kind of stuff, I think that would give us a good starting place.
Great.
If that's okay. I'm going to need a proposal from you. The New York State has a consolidated funding application, they call it. It's that grant application. I'm going to make an application on behalf of the town of East Fishkill. I'll ask the board for a resolution supporting that application for, say, up to $200,000 for this. We'll say it's for economic redevelopment, and I think if we can get some grant money, fine. Let me ask Tom this: if we can't get grant money, say we have to do this on our own, which often happens, the town of East Fishkill has to do it on their own dime. A developer comes in and they build, say, a warehouse, and they build a warehouse. Can there be a fee back to reimburse the town of East Fishkill for this plan?
Yes, you can establish that in your ordinance
Okay.
for reambrsement of some of the costs. that
So
have been
either
incurred.
one way or another, I think it would behoove us to move forward. Okay. All right. Any questions for Michelle tonight? Michelle, would you make yourself available maybe in a week or two? And any of the board members who like to meet with Michelle, give my secretary a call. We'll set up and let's talk about this further. But I think it's very important that, I hate to sit back, and when you see something happening, I think we have to take action. We can't just sit here and watch this whole thing just evaporate. So.
I also have some documents that we've done, GISs for other areas, in Yonkers, Pelham Manor, a couple other places, that I'm happy to share with you if you want. Just let me know if you want me to bring them.
Okay. Very good. And I'm going to get working on the grant application. I believe the grant application is due mid-June.
Yes.
So I don't have a lot of time. I'm going to be working on that. And also, if we can at least do something, if we don't get the grant, we can at least get reimbursed down the road. That would be fine. So, all righty. Thank you very much,
Thank
Michelle. I
you.
appreciate you coming in. We'll be talking about this, and we'll have some board members getting involved in the next week or two. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do you want to stay? If you want to go home, maybe it's dinner time, I don't know, something like that, please. But thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
All right, that's there's the redevelopment generic environmental impact statement. I do think it's something we should look into. That being done, number two under discussion is the water RFPs. We are looking to get new operators for our 10 water and 3 sewer systems. We had actually put out requests for proposals a while back, received them prior to the last voting meeting. I had a little time to go over them. I don't know, Scott, you want to go over the results of this? I mean, I see Mark summed it up pretty well in his email.
Well, maybe I'll just start with a little background.
Well, I'll just go over that. We did get 3 respondents. I forget, how many picked up packet 7?
I
Seemed
think
like
it was just 3,
What's that?
just the 3.
Only picked up the packets?
Yes.
Oh, there was like an army of people here.
Actually,
for
I
the-
think there were 4, to be
4
correct. I think
packets?
it was 4.
Okay, and then there was like an army of people here for the tour of all the systems.
Right.
And out of that, we've got 3 respondents, VRI, JCO, and environmental consultants, so.
That's correct.
And if you would, Scott, sure, talk about it, just give us a
Yeah,
little background.
just real quick, a little background. I think it was 2008 when we last put out an RFP for, water operators. Prior to that, Highway actually had a small staff that took care of it. But as the town was growing and we had, more systems, a person was retiring, we analyzed it, it
Well,
seemed like
and
it'd be
if I
a
may,
good
we
time
only
to.
had about 4 systems originally.
Yeah, I think
Like
it was
as you
6.
say,
yeah.
we're at a jumping off point where one person was retiring. The question was, do we create an in-house, build up a water department or not? We decided to sub out. I think we originally put out the original RFPs 2007, awarded it in 2008, renewed it again in 2012 was the renewal of this.
Right. So from the 6 that we originally started out with, we're now up to 11 water systems, and we've added 3 sewer systems. So, we have substantially a lot more systems that we're operating. And, during that time, we had negotiated, the addition of those contracts, and we had reached a point where we really wanted just to make sure that, the prices that we had agreed to were, fair market and reasonable. And, the fact that we had more systems might make it more attractive to, other firms to bid on it. So that's kind of what, what brought us here today to put out the RFP. We did get three respondents. The low respondent right now, their name is JCO Incorporated. We have been checking out their references and the resume, and we have had some discussions with them, and so far, they seem like a competent company. I haven't got feedback from all the references, but those that I have spoke to, I've spoke highly of them. So.
Yeah, and I've met with them. I know Mark and you have met with them. I feel they know their business. They seem to be, on the outset, they seem they seem very qualified. So I know you're checking the references.
Right.
as
We're
we speak.
continuing, to check
Yeah.
everything, but that's
And we
their
would
level.
realize a savings, quite a savings, if we award the bid to JCO if they pass the test, if they pass the muster. So.
Right.
I think that's good. And actually, what has happened, well, the next phase, what has happened is, this is for water operators,
Water and sewer.
water and sewer operators, but what happens, this is just for the day-to-day operations. Now, the next phase, the next step is actually going to be, because we're going to have to get people to do repairs. And what happened with our previous company, they started doing water operators and repairs, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger.
Bigger and bigger.
And I think by separating out the operations is a good thing. And then we'll be looking at doing the repair, having another company doing the repairs in the
Yes.
future.
Yes.
So, but you're going
And
to,
by those repairs, we're really talking about water main breaks.
water main breaks, yeah.
The substantial work out in the street, those
Yeah.
type of things. If it's replacing a pump or anything inside the facility, then this company more than likely would do it.
Right. By those water main breaks, and they can be significant, so. All righty. Yes.
Let me ask you, so we going to hire a different company to do repairs. Just a question. Say there is a water main break, and JCO has to go with the company who's doing the repair?
Well, one person will.
Included in their proposal
Okay.
is have a operator there who's going to shut down the main, stand by,
While they do the repair,
While they do the
and then turn
repair.
it back on?
make sure at the end it's turned back on, no leaks, flushing if we need to flush, and get us back online, properly. We would not
That's
just turn
included-
our line over to an outside vendor to close the valves, open the
And the
valves, et
health
cetera.
department regulations require that licensed operators supervise that.
Be on site.
And that's provided for with this contract.
Okay,
Yes.
that's in the RFP. Thank you.
And well, one thing that you bring that up, one of the other things we discussed because of the transition, because we do have quite a variety of sewer and water systems, if we were to have one of the members, one of our old operators just on standby for a few months through the transition, I don't know, something
Yeah,
we
we
discussed.
did talk about, the
Yeah.
transition has been a bit of a concern
Yeah.
because we have so much going on. We don't want to have any interruptions in service.
Yeah.
We don't want to have any paperwork
So
hiccups
Right.
between DEC and Board of
Yeah.
Health. So we have kicked around having someone to aid in that transition for a
just
short
to make
period of
sure
time.
there's a smooth transition. And whatever happens, I think there's going to be a savings. And going
And I know
forward, there's
Mark's
going to be a
looked at the numbers
savings.
as well. He's provided the numbers to the board.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes.
It's nice to have a savings, but also, the level of service is important. Some people have older systems, and there are sometimes a lot of repairs to do, and
Yep.
maybe we can do something about easier transition. I don't know. if
I
you
just want to
thought
make
about
sure that
something
our
like
phone
that.
isn't ringing off the hook.
Right.
You know, with
Well,
some.
one of the
some-
questions I asked, I said, I want to know about the problems with your systems. If you have a new system, but I
Anybody
wanna know
can run
about-
a new system.
I want to know about your old systems that you have problem, and a supervisor that I did speak to in another town said, the phone used to ring off the hook, I had all these problems, they came on board, they got the arms around it, the phone stopped ringing, I'm very pleased, so.
So we just want to make sure for that time, until they get their arms around it, we're covered. So we'll see how that goes.
The
Yes,
only thing, these numbers that you gave us, what we actually paid now,
right.
this is for the same job, and the same company bid 10% less than they used to pay.
Notice that.
It happens, they sharpen their
And
pencil.
they still lost the bid.
And they still lost the bid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
But
I
it's
think
the
sort of
same service.
validates the process,
So
Yeah.
that, but this is the same level of service.
Yes,
It includes no
yes.
repairs.
Yeah,
Correct.
Exactly.
It's basically operations and maintenance.
It's
Basic-
it's
Operations,
oranges to
basic
oranges.
maintenance.
Okay, that's all I want to know.
Yep,
I'm okay with it.
and they shaved their number by 10%. All right, and Scott, you'll get back to us after you
After I complete the
Due
the
diligence.
phone conversations with the references, yes.
Okay, good deal. Scott, while we're talking water, would we like to talk about our water projects? Like, just bring the board up to, and just let me say, we're kind of to a jumping off point here. With two of them, the sewer and the water, and I have to say this. With sewer and water, we do a lot of engineering in-house. We do a lot of work in-house. But you get to a point where you actually, if we're going to do a water system, we need to apply for permits, we need to look at where the pipe's going to be laid, we need to do test borings, stuff that will cost money. And we can't just keep taking out of the general fund, which is what we do, and it's allowed. We take from the general fund to do the initial engineering stuff. But we're really to a point now where we need to fund the systems. So to that end, we need to do a ban or bond. And I'm going to ask the board, I think probably at the next voting meeting, after we just have some discussion. But I'd like to do a ban or a bond, so that way, right now, we're just doing whatever we can do in-house. We need to be serious about this. We need to get them done. So this is why I want the board to be comfortable with our water projects and our sewer projects. And we'll talk about that a little bit. But Scott, if you'd like to give us a little update?
Sure.
Oh, and just let me just make the one, I'd have to make the one note, that any ban or any bond will be paid for by the people in that district that benefit from that system. It will not be paid by the general taxpayers. It will be paid by the people in that district. Just that's how this works.
Okay, so back in April, I had provided the board with a handout that kind of gave an overview of the different systems that we have within the town and the needs of those systems, whether it's an improvement of water quality or water quantity. Since that time, we're continuing to try to tighten up the scope, refine the scope. We're getting to more and more details. We're looking at the different options to best service the different systems. There's a lot of variables that I won't get into all of them, but, as you look into one thing and you resolve it, you see that it creates maybe two more issues that you then have to troubleshoot those issues. So it's a process to make sure at the end of the day, we have, the best system and the best model, that we possibly can have. So it's an ongoing process. But what we're trying to do is dovetail as much as we can together to utilize the well field from across the street. But some of the issues with that is that we have certain time constraints on some of the systems that we really can't wait till we have our full development across the street. So we're trying to address those, whether separately or on an interim basis, to try to dovetail into our main water source, which we believe is to be Cannon. So if we just talked about Cannon specifically and what we know in terms of immediate need from Cannon, we know we have the Hopewell Glen system that currently buys water from the county. We have the Hopewell Hamlet system that currently is maxed out. We can't supply anything to Church Street or any of these areas, Bridge Street, I'm sorry, for any development there. We have the Cannon parcel across the street that, we have RFPs out now for development. We do not have a source of water for that. So no matter what, we know we can provide those entities from across the street. Beyond that, we have Fishkill Plains that is pretty much maxed out right now, and we don't have redundancy. It's been that way for a long, long time, since before we bought it, and we're trying to address that problem. We have Revere Park that has water quality issue, and Board of Health has really given us a short deadline for getting that resolved. And then we have Brett View, of course, that feeds off of Fishkill Plains. So to the greatest extent possible, we like to dovetail all of these systems into our Cannon supply, but the wrinkle is, time constraints, whether or not we can be up and running in time to meet the demands and requirements of Board of Health. So we're exploring different options, whether that might be drilling an extra well at Fishkill Plains, which brings with it a lot of red tape and, water quality, and, we're in a wetland, there's things with that. We're exploring potentially rehabbing those wells, but, there's certain risks associated with rehab. Should one be damaged during the rehab, it would leave us, short on supply. And we're also looking at maybe making a connection to Hopewell Glen, and with that, we have the current trihalomethane issue that we're dealing with. So there's a lot of moving parts to this, but what we do know is we need to get a water supply permit for our well field. That's a given. We know we have to get our tank designed. That's a given. We know we have to get across the Fishkill Creek. That's a given. We know we need to get pipes from here to Hopewell Glen. So a lot of it's settled in terms of what we need to do. It's just, I think, some of the perimeter systems, seeing to what extent we can dovetail those to get the best bang for our buck across the street when everything is up and running.
Exactly. And the thing with this, Mark Bosniak and I, our controller, were talking a few weeks ago about water. Mark says, I really think the town should own the water systems because, being the town, we don't make a profit here. We're out to, do the right thing, make sure that everything is run correctly. But our problem is, if you look at these systems, they're maxed out. Fishkill Plains is maxed out. Hopewell, the Hamlet systems are all maxed out. So yes, we have a lot of systems and they're running fine, but they're maxed. And there's no redundancy. If Fishkill Plains goes down, we have a serious problem here.
But right now in Fishkill Plains, we have Taconic Innovations, which is a special needs facility, 16,000 square foot. They need fire protection, sprinklers. They want to connect to our water. We're trying to squeeze them in.
Yeah, but
and
we don't have
Board
the
of Health
capacity.
so far is not going along with it. So at least if we can have a plan in place to, increase our water supply, because we hate to see them spend $50,000 on an on-site treatment system for water, and then a year later say, okay, we want you to connect to us. We don't want to do that.
Right.
So we need the cooperation of the Board of Health, and we need to have a plan in place that's moving forward. And those are some of the real issues that we're dealing with right now. And I know there's other projects in that area that are also proposed. So now's the time.
And with that, also, I know you have on the list here Shenandoah. Now, let's just face it, the rates that the town officials charging us at Shenandoah are pretty through the roof. It's a very difficult situation to be buying water from Fishkill. That rate, they control the rate, and we're buying that water when we have this here. But the 52 corridor is always difficult to get water to.
Right, and along with
that is in here, and we're looking at that.
And not only are the rates very high, they've increased, I think, 250%. They're going to go higher when they've made their improvements that they need to make to give us the water that we actually need. Because right now we're limited to only 35,000 gallons a day, even though we have a contract for 80. And we're at that point.
But once they make their improvements,
it'll go up even higher. And we pay 1.25 times their rate because we're out of district. So.
Yeah, so these are some of the issues. So, it's best to have your own water source. We have a great water source across the street. But to get the well supply permit, to do the design, to do the test borings to see where the water mains are going to go.
Right.
The tank design, these are the things that we really need to be doing now. And we really can't continue just to do in-house as we have been. Our engineering department's done a great job, but we're going to have to...
I might add, back to that clock ticking, Hopewell Glen has a commitment to the Dutchess County Water and Wastewater Authority to have a tank constructed on their site by either the 103rd CO or by 2015, okay? And what we're trying to do is work with that development to say, okay, let's do a joint effort, and rather than put a tank on your site that'll only serve your development, let's put a tank on our site that'll serve more of the town at a higher elevation. And let's increase the size of the tank. Let's have one tank.
Right.
But we're working against that clock because they need to know we're serious and
Where-
we're
and
going
they
to have a
need to
tank
know,
built,
yeah,
because
where
they
they
don't want
gonna
to have
build
to
their
stop
tank.
building houses.
Yeah.
So, we have a lot of.
A lot of things going on right now.
So wait, they'll pay for the tank?
They will make a large contribution.
Well, we're not saying they'll pay for the tank, but we're
They'll make a
negotiating
large contribution
a
towards it, yeah.
contribution.
No,
They'll contribute at least what they would spend to build.
To build their own.
that's Toll Brothers.
Yep.
Correct.
And what about the county? Didn't we
county,
have a
I
The
situation with
county was not responsible to participate in the cost of that tank. That was
No.
strictly the developer at Hopewell.
They
Glen.
were interested in a tank, but I think right now the county's got other things they're doing. I'm told they need a tank up there, some reason to backfeed Dutchess Airport, which they want to bring water to, but
Well, not only that, they're so far away from their source that if there's ever a break, they just have no storage,
Yeah.
15 miles away to
Yeah, the
provide.
county's got some issues
Yeah.
with that.
They have to actually do a repair.
Now, the
Right
EPA
now,
is
that's gonna be
also
an issue.
interested in across the street, which is another reason we have to keep moving along with the process.
And
because
exactly.
EPA,
Exactly.
I know you've been speaking with their engineers, you guys have been back
They've
and forth.
gotten to the point where they've also issued out an RFP to do system modeling, the same as we've been doing.
Yep.
I think those are due back May 12th, I think next week, unless it's been extended. And I know they have 4 firms, local firms, looking at
Yeah.
doing their modeling.
So there's,
Yeah, and until they complete their modeling, we really don't know how it's going to dovetail. We know we can supply the water. Not sure about the storage.
Mm-hmm.
We're not sure about the pressures because they need to do their own modeling. So, but we
Right.
do have the water.
and they have decided this is their source.
Yes.
So I think that, we have to keep moving with the project. We have a lot of our own needs. We have the EPA, the Superfund site has a need, so we do need to move forward. And also, just quick touching on sewer, one of the things when we talk about economic development with Michelle that just left, without water and sewer, there is no economic development. A company's not going to come into an area. We need to actually provide sewer. Now, we have talked with IBM, because they do have a large sewer plant there with excess capacity, and they may be interested in letting us buy in, they would take a certain amount of residential and commercial type of sewage, but, you're dealing with a large corporation, but we have to be ready if we need to do, no matter what, we're going to have to run a main down there anyway, if we go to IBM or if we come up to here. So,
Well, yeah, at some point, the idea is we would come to the hamlet, but
Yeah.
if we are able to go to IBM.
that would be a
it-
short-term commitment for a couple of years.
Right, and it allows us to grow the base
Yeah.
down there.
And when you
we're
talk
starting-
about economic development, and I don't know, you probably have it in one of your handouts, Scott, we've got who's looking to come in down there is, number one, the West Complex, the proposed sports dome, John Jay High School, Orthopedics Associates just bought the old restaurant down there. They're interested in sewer. Corporate Park has expressed an interest in sewer.
Yes.
So now what we're seeing is down on the 52 corridor, a lot of interest in sewer. So we cannot do economic redevelopment without infrastructure. So this is again where we are. Now, I think I asked Tom yesterday, I think I spoke with you, what would we be doing at some point when it comes to the sewer? We're going to be forming a district down there, just like we'll be forming, like we formed districts here, we'll be doing the same thing for the Ryan Drive Superfund. So any money that we spend on the sewer project will be paid for by those entities in the sewer, which would be John Jay and those other businesses. So, but we need to, I do think that we need to keep this ball rolling, and we need the infrastructure. So I was going to ask the board for, say, up to $2 million. We'll do a band up to $2 million, and the board will know every step of the way. Maybe we'll have quarterly, monthly reports on where we are. But we need this flexibility because we have these projects that we need to just get funding them. The ban or the bond will be paid by the users in that district. But without the infrastructure, you don't get the expansion. It's like a cat chasing its tail. You need to have that one before you have the other. So that's what I'm going to ask the board for request from the board, authorization for up to $2 million for our water and sewer projects. And again, that will be paid off by the people in the district that will benefit. So, and
Do we need to have any discussion before we approve those resolutions, or do we need to discuss it with the places that are...
Oh,
gonna-
absolutely, we'll be forming a district, it'll be like a public hearing for the sewer
There'll be.
district.
If you want to go ahead. Maybe just a little
Yeah.
bit about the process, is the Cannon Well Field is being set up as what they call an enterprise fund within the general fund. So that, well, first of all borrowing on behalf of the town is by the town board, and it's a town debt. The repayment of it happens in many different ways. The enterprise fund, the well fields across the street, once they're established and working, each of these districts, depending upon how much water they draw, will pay that rate. And if you look through Scott's papers, I don't know tonight, but last week, there was a projected revenue. So that revenue will come in and pay for it, so it will be neutral for the general taxpayers. What the supervisor is referring to is under the town law, the town board has the right to expend general fund dollars to do studies, et cetera, for establishment of a district. If the district is established, that money is then charged back against that district only. But what the supervisor is referring to now is like that seed money. I think the sewer amount would be very modest. The bulk of that first borrowing would be to get the well fields going.
And, you know, this is one of the things, now, I don't know, we don't have, Mark, you could answer this, we don't have a lot of bonds outstanding. We have a little bit of debt in the highway department.
Yeah, there's some debt for highway paving. There's the ban for the property across the street, which we're carrying year to year.
Yeah.
And everything else is for the acquisition or improvement of water and sewer districts.
Yeah, so, and that's, the total bonding that we have out is not much.
It's minimal compared to however you measure debt to
Other-
assessment, debt
Yeah.
to total
So
expenditures.
We don't, what I'm getting at is, we don't do a lot of bonding here. Now, one of the reasons I was really pushing to get the RFP out across the street is because when we do that project across the street and we sign a contract, that will actually pay off that $1.3 million bond, or ban, which, see, I don't like to borrow money, but you have to sometimes borrow money. We don't borrow a lot of money here. I would like to know that that debt is going to be retired, which it will be once we sign the contracts, and at the end of that project, that will take care of that ban. So I wanted to get the RFPs out to make sure we're along the process and paying off the $1.3 million, but we are to a point where we need to take on a little bit more debt, which would be $2 million for the water and sewer projects. So we try to keep things in order. I don't just like to I don't want to run up debt, but I'm satisfied we will be paying off the ban. That's going to be taken care of, and I'd like to go forward with these water and sewer projects.
Yeah, but also, we're just getting $2 million worth of credit, correct?
That's correct.
Up to, yeah,
Up to $2 million worth of credit.
Right.
And we don't pay on it unless we actually
use it.
take it,
Correct.
correct?
Well, you're authorizing, sure. I mean, you're authorizing the borrowing.
I got a $2 million credit card,
Basically.
but if I only charge $100,000, I only pay on the $100,000.
Correct. Yes.
Correct.
So we wouldn't use any more than we need, obviously, and I will keep the board and everybody, and we'll have regular reports on the process and where we are.
Right, because like Peter said, the municipal financing is you authorize the bond, but then what you do is use bond anticipation notes, which could be $50,000, $100,000, and, you know, that gives you the flexibility, and the board has to issue all of these, and you can go all the way up to, but you have to do your adopting resolution authorizing the bond before it opens up the credit line for the bond anticipation notes.
So that's really where we are. I think, again, like I say, there's no economic development without infrastructure. And, I mean, it'd be nice to think that a developer would come in and do all this, and maybe in the old days they would have, but those days are long gone. So we have to step up, in my mind, we have to step up and make this stuff happen. And I think, like I said, when we start talking about sewer, down in 52, we actually had people knocking on our door saying, gee, we would like to be in the district. You know, normally we'll have to say, we're doing this, are you interested? Well, down there, they were coming to us saying, gee, we really want to be in your sewer. So I think it's probably a good thing to do. And I'd like the board, if anybody on the board would like to talk with Scott about it, Mark, you want to have a meeting, talk about it further, I'd like to entertain this at the June voting meeting, or the May voting meeting. But I want everybody to feel comfortable with what we're doing. Like I say, I don't like that, but I'm comfortable with what's going to happen across the street with that ban. I think we can make this investment to keep moving forward. Nick, Councilman Del
Yeah,
Sangro?
I have some questions. From this proposal to the last proposal, you've included Hopewell Glen, Ryan Drive, and Fishkill Plains, and the other one that wasn't included, which I'm happy it's included in this one.
No, I believe we had a few more in the last one, and including like Revere Park, we had potentially Worley Homes, we had originally included, and then what happened with that, the time constraint with Board of Health, and, we started peeling off and saying, you know what, maybe rather than postponing, we should, drill another well, rehab another well. So I kind of pulled that out in this proposal, which I did several days ago. And daily, we're talking to the hydrogeologist, and we're getting input about filtration, and so it's evolving as we speak. So that's why I said earlier, we're trying to meet deadlines. We're trying to dovetail as much as we can. I think what you have tonight is kind of like a worst-case minimal amount of users, and this is what it's going to cost for those users. Ideally, we bring more users into it, more like the original proposal I did a couple months ago, if we can do some interim connections and work out those details. So, it's at a point to start coming together, but we didn't want to wait till we dotted every I and crossed every T before we had this
Right.
dialogue.
And
Right.
it comes down to that timing.
And my point is, I'm happy that there's more users,
Yeah.
obviously, because of all for Hopewell Glen, the trihalomethanes, everything else. While we're on the subject, in this proposal that I was looking through, how it's going to be paid and how the Enterprise Water Fund is going to encompass everything, which is a great idea, and it's going to be needed for the town. We have to think about consolidation at some point, and this is what this is doing.
Yeah.
So, instead of having a separate enterprise fund, which I know we have to set that up, and we have, but if we should think about down the road about saving some money, about consolidation, forming a Department of Public Works, and having the water and sewer and possibly even the highway all under one umbrella, where I think that
Yeah.
would benefit the town
Oh,
even more.
that's a great idea.
My other question was the EPA contribution. We don't know the amounts, but
It's discussed, but I got a big question mark there.
and,
Yes, we don't.
and I'm sure there's many questions, especially with them, but wouldn't they have to do all of this too?
Yes.
Site work improvements, off-site, on-site distribution lines, treatment facilities, storage tank, well fields. So it would cost them a heck of a lot more than $1 million.
Previously, there had been a problem with the EPA accepting what we call a buy-in fee. They're buying in, and now they've come around. They said, we understand it, and I think that Tom and their attorney had spoken about it now, and they're okay with it. But what we're going to show them is they're going to get so many thousands of gallons, and they're going to show them what it costs for the tank, for the pumps, and all this stuff. And we're going to give the EPA a bill. And they've agreed that they will pay the buy, because they agree. They would have to do all that stuff if they built this out.
So it's possibly less.
Well, that number is just the number you're seeing. That number has
Right.
not been,
Yeah, I
beyond.
know. So what I'm saying is that number could possibly be more.
it'll be what it's going to be.
Yeah, because we're not going to, we're going to be right up front, and these what our costs were.
Now, a big factor is going to be, what we've learned so far is they have a tremendous fire demand. If they stick with the current fire demand, they'll have to put their own tank on the other end of the system. So they'll get less of a benefit from our tank in that case, so the money would be less. But if they tweak those numbers that we're able to satisfy their fire demand, then that contribution would be more. So, it's too early to call that until
Got it.
all the engineering is done.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and let me just say, I do like your thought about consolidation, so we'll talk about that further.
Are we gonna be able to get out of all these other, are we gonna be able to get out of all these other contracts with all these water? Like the county and Fishkill, are we gonna?
Well, actually, I think Scott has that factored in, but with the Hopewell Glen contract, the way that was and we say Hopewell Glen, but that's really on behalf of the water district that's
Yeah.
formed, so it's our contract. The requirement there is we have to take 50,000 gallons of water, and next year, there's an option to take the additional water that would be needed for that project. I've written, at the supervised direction, I wrote to the Dutchess County Water Authority, who is now reaching out to the city and town of Poughkeepsie Water Board, and we've asked for a 2-year extension of that trigger date. And the reason for that is because with the economic downturn, Toll Brothers isn't as far along in the building of homes. So if they give us that 2-year extension, I think that gives us the time to get this online, and then
Not have to enter that
we
section
would
from
not
the
have to
contract.
pull the trigger and get more county water. And with the 50,000 gallons, even with the trihalomethane, the engineers have worked out a way that it could be blended and the level is dropped and becomes a non-issue.
The Fishkill contract is,
There is no minimum taking in Fishkill.
no,
Right.
but Fishkill contract is rather irritating, because we know that's just going to continue to go up. So if there's anything, I shouldn't say this, but I do think that we should supply our own water to Shenandoah.
And again, with Hopewell Glen, they currently purchase 50,000. I have that addressed here, and we're just allotting 84,000 across the street, which is the second portion of their contract that they have to execute. So that's factored in the 50,000.
That they continue to receive that 50,000, and then they would just take ours.
We're going to provide the additional, instead of
addition.
them executing the second part, the second phase of their contract, to take an additional 84,000, we would provide that 84,000.
But what if, I guess what I'm asking is, what if they decide they don't want the 50,000?
Yeah.
What if we can supply the 150,000?
Which
Yeah.
we can.
Yeah.
Can they
It's
get
just
out of
Out of the
that?
50,000, that's what I'm asking.
Well, yeah.
Is that a lifetime deal? I mean, we could get out.
Well,
can't
it's
we?
renewable and stuff,
Yeah,
but,
it's renewable. I have
yeah,
to
we'll
look
talk
at
about the
terms.
legal aspects of the county contract.
Anything
Right.
else?
Yeah.
And just as a reminder, the enterprise fund already has 2 wells there that, I think it was last year, we approved them using it for irrigation, so we're also getting revenue from those irrigation wells
Over in Hopewell Glen.
over at Hopewell Glen.
Scott, I got a question about Fishkill Plains.
Yes,
Those new sites that are in the process of being developed.
yes,
You mentioned about the fire sprinklers.
yes.
Can't they use rainwater for that?
Rainwater?
Right. Can
No.
they put some kind of cistern in the back of the building
No.
to use? No?
No, no, but just to give you an idea, they did pressure tests on our system. If we're running 70 pounds and 200 gallons a minute, it's a substantial pressure and volume of water that you're just not going to get out of a
So
cistern.
that could not be an
And
alternate way?
there's no real dependability that if you don't have rain and all that, so that's not anywhere. If they had a reservoir, if they had a lake, a pond, potentially you could do something like that, but not just the rainwater.
Okay, any other questions? Again, stop in, see Scott and Mark, talk about the numbers, talk about the budgets, but this is something I think we can do, and I think it's a very, very important investment in the town, so. All right, that was it for water projects and funding. The last item under discussion is proposed zoning changes. We had some zoning changes that we had talked about. The one, we're looking at a possibility of an assisted living project over at Route 52 East Fishkill Golf Center. And we talked about assisted living facilities. Obviously, at this point, it's not allowed in a B1 zone. That's a B1 zone. You talk about changing the law to allow that to be an appropriate use in a B1 zone. There was 2 issues that I had with this I wanted to bring to the board. I'm thinking assisted living, there's different types of assisted living, and I'm thinking that maybe this law that's proposed has 55 years. I don't think we should continue with the 55 years because younger people may need assisted living for whatever reason. So I'd like to change that. Also, and I was saying to Tom before, this assisted living definition would be applied if we approved it this way, I believe, as of right. And I don't know if that's an appropriate way to apply an assisted living zone. I think maybe it should be by special permit of the town board, because I think that there's going to be times you're going to want to look into a certain site and see if it is really appropriate for that. I think we need to have a little more control over that. I don't want it as of right, but that's just my thoughts on it. Anybody else, any thoughts?
Yeah, and who runs the facility? Right? Don't we care about that?
We would do our due diligence.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Absolutely, but I'm concerned, like, if you have, like, what it's next to. If you have, say, B1 zone, but it's next to a residential that you look at, say, I think assisted living is great, but this is just not the area for it.
Yeah, right.
You
So
know,
as of right, then they could have.
Exactly. So I think that would give us the ability to be a little bit more discerning about where it's actually placed. But that's my thoughts on it. I don't know. Any board members have any thoughts on assisted living?
I asked the town lawyer this afternoon, some of the terminology, I mean, I would like to see it a little bit more precise, because I don't know if in the future somebody could come in and say, you know, something that it's really not in our intentions today. But if we leave it open for anybody to interpret it a different way, then we could run into some issues. Definitely the fact that leave it up to the zoning board to interpretation, I would not allow that, because again, we could run into some misunderstanding. And
Well, I think the zoning board always has the authority for interpretation if they are approached.
right, but
They
if we
request
put a definite guidelines in there, it would make it easier for them and probably less problematic in the future for the town to say no to something that it's not meant
Okay.
at this point to be what we want it to be, so.
Okay. Would you like to draft something up, what you think
No,
needs to be? No, honestly, would you like to just make some changes, what you think should be changed in it, and we'll talk about it? You can email it to us and the attorney and review it. Or do you have any thoughts on what needs to be changed to make it more specific?
Well, I mean, what is supervised, do we have the intent of that term? What does it mean, supervised?
Supervised living facilities?
Okay? Could it be somebody that was a step-down prison person, is that considered supervised? I mean, could it be a drug rehab center? Could we say no once we have supervised? So some of this terminology, I think, should be addressed at this point, so that we're not running into any issues later on.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So if you want, I could work with the town lawyer, maybe spend a few minutes and...
Well, we started with the draft from the planner, then you gave it to me to reduce it, which I've done.
Yeah.
But after speaking with the councilman and yourself, why don't I
Yes.
take another shot at it?
And get it out, and if you would get it back, I mean, you understand our concerns. So if
Because
we
you
want,
may want to keep the 55, but allow it for those with other disabilities, and take the age away for those who might need supportive living because they're,
okay.
have suffered an injury or
Right,
something
right,
like
right.
that.
Which is really my concern, yeah.
Right, but the 55, I think, would address some of the councilman's concerns
Okay.
about the type of institution, so maybe
Yeah.
we could come up with a hybrid like
That's a
that.
good idea.
And then what we could do probably is to incorporate the actual definitions of each of these facilities
Right.
here, give you a better comfort level.
Now, is there, in this thing, are we putting height, size of the building?
Well, no, you still
Not
have...
in this.
This would still be subject to your regular bulk regulations that are in the various zoning districts. So that tells you how much lot coverage the building should cover, how high it is, which I think is about 35 feet. And things like that, that's in the bulk regulations.
Because stuff like that, knowing like most of these facilities, what you're gonna have to look at, is it economically feasible? Is it economically feasible for these people to come in and build one of these places, which are not cheap, as I'm sure?
Well, I think 35 feet could go 3 stories.
It would be a squeeze.
It'd be squeezed, so it's
Yeah,
like
because
2
most of
stories.
the, looking at most of the ones in
So
the
you may
area
wanna
towns,
Consider some
Yeah.
flexibility.
it might have to be bigger, just so, because they're gonna wanna make money on them, because they're not cheap to run.
And you'll need sewer and water.
And they'll need
And then
sewer
sewer and
water.
water.
Absolutely.
And then we know the rates, because they're on that side of town.
Good point, Peter. We'll take a look at that, part of the height consideration. But that is in the bulk regulations. That's a good point.
But we might have to look
Yeah.
at it, is all I'm saying.
But
Good point.
what was wrong with from the memo from April 4th with the alternative caring housing definition? What was wrong with that one? We reviewed that?
Yeah, I don't recall that one off the top of my head. I know the attorney took that one, and he made some changes to it, submitted this to us here.
It was fine, I thought. That was, We didn't have the 55, but we didn't have the years in there.
We're getting there now. We're getting to the details.
Okay.
And I would like,
This is pretty detailed.
yeah. And also, but I would like to have it also, I think, by special permit. I think that's very important.
Town board special.
I would agree with
Town
that,
board
yeah.
special permit, so.
And then maybe in that process, we could address Councilman Cassidy's point about the height. You might say that the town board could vary the height by X, to
Okay.
X. And
So-
that might give you greater flexibility.
So the councilman wants the height in the definition.
No, I'm just saying,
As part of the special permit.
there's a guy in
No, we
local
understand.
that we should probably talk to.
All right.
I'll tell you after the meeting,
Okay, good.
because I
So-
don't want to mention a name on the TV, you get in trouble.
Okay, you will get in trouble. All right, so Tom, if you'll take care of that and get the board an even more detailed proposal, I'd appreciate it. All right, and one other thing I did want to mention, we had a request from a gentleman, conversion of 1 Four Corners Boulevard, Hopewell Junction, from retail professional building into residential units. They came to us last year. It's the commercial building out of Four Corners. They've tried a few different things, nothing seems to last over there. They'd like to do a residential conversion. I asked them to write the town board a letter and detail, give us a little more detail on their request, which they did. I actually have a friend that lives in Four Corners, so I sent this over. I'd like to see what their community says. If they're in favor of this, I would see that possibly the gentleman, the owner of that building, if he would meet with the Four Corners people and they would come to an agreement, I mean, I have no problem with it, as long as the community is in favor with it, in favor of it, so. But everybody's got a copy of it, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Do we know if this is market rate?
He had proposed, yes, it would be market rate.
Okay.
The Four Corners itself has an affordable set
Right.
aside.
10% set aside, yeah.
Yes.
Will that
That
also
should actually
apply
apply
to
to this,
that?
wouldn't it? You're
So
right.
one unit has to be
Yeah, if he had 10
affordable.
units, one would have to be...
To be consistent with the existing
yep,
group development.
That's
yeah.
true.
More affordable.
So we're going to wait. We sent it over. I'd like to get some response from the Four Corners people and see what their thoughts on it
I
are.
think the biggest change was when they spoke to you, they said they were looking to convert it to condos. This letter says residential apartments.
Yeah,
I thought it was apartments when he talked about it originally.
Condo might be more fitting with the homeowners association as opposed to.
Okay. And one other thing I did want to mention, we're going to be considering changing the zoning to allow a large-scale sports facility in an I-1 zone. We do have the sports dome is before the planning board. They'll be in front of us. One thing I would like to, we have a little issue that I have to bring to your attention is, what is the application fee for a sports dome? We know if this was a regular building, steel and concrete building, we know what the fee would be. But it's not a steel and concrete building, it's a dome. It's not even rated, the tax is not even taxed as a building. It's taxed as a lower percentage because it's not a concrete and steel structure, it's a dome. So there are some issues with it. There's no other floors, but just a lot of air up there, except for that little area they're going to build all their commercial stuff, which will be taxed. But the dome itself isn't. So the question is, what is the application fee supposed to be for this sort of a facility? So I'm going to do is ask, I'm going to get a copy of what a normal application fee would be, send it out to the board and figure out what we think would be an applicable application fee for this facility. So we've never had one come before us before.
One thing, the only thing I would suggest, are we qualified, or do you feel safe calling all the inspections and everything on this?
No, we're not gonna.
Or are we gonna have to pay someone to come in and do it?
Well, that would be an escrow account.
Yeah. We're just
No,
talking about,
I'm talking the actual
Yeah, the structure.
inspections as it's going along.
Right.
That would come out of an escrow account?
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I want to be sure.
I think what the problem is
Let me-
with, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, the application fee is just the application fee.
Right.
All other expenses are covered by the dome through the escrow. We don't pay for any engineering review, any of that. This is just the application.
And we discussed that already with the applicants, so they know if it happens.
No, but I'm talking when he's doing the actual
No,
building
well, I
inspection.
think there's two things. You got the site plan, that there's a 5% set aside for inspection of the site work. and then you have the actual structure, then that structure is usually part of your application fee for a building permit that covers those inspections. And I
Right.
think that is what
That's
needs
what
to be
I'm-
covered
for
under
building,
escrow
yeah.
in this
Oh, okay.
particular case.
That's what I'm questioning, because
Yeah.
I don't, Scott hasn't inspected too
Oh.
many domes, so he may have to
No,
call
we're
Joe
going to
the
have
dome
to, we're going to have
inspector
to,
up.
research and get someone qualified
Yeah.
to assist
Right,
with that.
and I want to make sure that guy, we got enough money to pay him.
So
Absolutely.
you're talking about the building permit fee, not the application fee for the...
Well, yeah, I guess-
Yeah.
But in any
Okay.
event, we've already discussed that with the applicant, and
Yeah.
they understand that. But I think the issue with the application fee for site plan approval, it's based on square footage of the building. This particular building, the floor is a turf. So I think what we'd have to do is look at perhaps modifying how you calculate it, that it's calculated, say, on the actual structure
Well, there is a
part.
ring structure around
Right,
the perimeter.
but do it that as opposed to otherwise you're charging an application fee on earth.
Well, it's concrete underneath the turf.
No,
No,
No?
no.
no, it's earth.
Dirt.
Earth
Really?
gravel, yes. I thought the same thing, but it's not.
It's a little different animal than we're used to, you know.
Well, whatever it costs for the enterprise fund.
Yeah.
Sounds fair.
So we're going to do some research and see what would be the fee, how we apply this. I'll get that out to the board. I'd like to make this a part of the resolution on that, on the change for the I-1 zone. So,
They have done this in other areas. Do we have an idea from someplace else what they usually charge for that?
Not at this point.
I think, don't they have one in Danbury, the same
Yeah,
company?
there's one in
We saw one in
Danbury.
Danbury, yeah,
So
I
they
don't
should have,
know.
we could,
Yep.
We could
They
endeavor
have
to
them
try
all
to
over the
Yeah,
look
we can
into
call and
that.
find out, get an idea what their application fee was.
Right.
They don't have secret in Danbury, though.
No, they don't.
Their fees are probably less too, that's why everybody's over there.
Well,
so we'll
it
put a
could be.
10% on that.
All righty, and that's it for tonight on the discussion.
Bless you.
With that, liaison reports. Peter, do you have any reports from Highway?
Just talked to Dennis, what he's been doing for about the last month, patching potholes, repairing a lot of catch basins. They started sweeping the roads in the town. Could take a little over a month to get all the way around, he's hoping. And they're fixing and updating the street signs that Mother Nature got over the winter.
Okay. Well, I'm sure they'll be busy, especially with the potholes. I'll check on that. I will, because we had a discussion with Dennis before about potholes, so I'll check with him and get back to you.
Well, I don't know what day, if they did it.
All right, Councilman D'Alessandro, any report from Planning and Zoning?
Well, planning's getting very busy. We have a lot of projects going on, Stone Ridge Commons, Orthopedic Associates, John Jay Gas Station, of course, the Dome. So that Route 52 corridor is really starting to bustle, and which is what we want. Also, possibly new development on Route 82. We got a lot going on.
Yeah.
So they're very busy, and they are very diligent, and they do a great job.
Yes, they do.
Our clerks are busy in that office, and they are very good.
And our professionals are very busy too, so,
Oh,
great,
well,
thank you.
Without saying.
Without saying. Good. Councilman Franco, Recreation.
Recreation, well, the last 2 weeks, we've had a little bit of confusion about the opening and closing of the fields. And I've met with some people in the rec department, and I must say they do a fine job. It's very difficult with the amount of people that they have. This last Monday, our rec advisory board meeting, we had several citizens come in, and they were very concerned about the field conditions, particularly in Leetown Field. And we told them about the Good Neighbor Grant and how that's still an in-progress thing, and we were hampered by the bad winter. I think a lot of it has to do with the winter being so bad, everybody wants their kids outside.
Right.
And they want them playing ball. So I have a meeting Monday morning at 8 with some of the people at the rec department, and we're going to discuss what we can do in the future about maintaining the fields and the things that we can do. And
Yeah.
we had discussed earlier, you and I,
Yeah.
about the field conditions and how, I guess, was it 20 years that they haven't been upgraded.
Somebody had mentioned to me that it's been 20 years before they've actually done any real
Right,
work
so
in the field.
perhaps we can come up, one of the things
Yeah.
I'd like to discuss with them is maybe come up with a master plan on the fields. We can rank the fields, what fields need the most work, and
Yep.
how we can go about approaching that.
Well, that's a great idea. You know, I just got dragged into this a couple weeks ago, and I didn't realize the amount of work obviously it takes to make the fields playable, but the fact you need to keep putting money into them to keep them up to a certain standard.
Right.
And I agree with you. I think a master plan for looking at, number one, you're going to have to assess the fields to get a baseline and a master plan about which fields you're going to take out, rehab, and put back in. But I think that's a really, really great idea. I think you guys are onto something really good here. And I hope that, well, you know, the other thing is, though, unfortunately, it's May. So this is not the time to be doing this.
Right, we just hope the weather cooperates and
Yeah.
the kids can play.
But we'll get through this year, and then next year, I think we'll put into action our master plan for field rehab. So it's a very good idea. Good. Councilman Marinero, Hillside Lake Park District?
Yeah, there's been quite a bit of action going on with the Hillside Lake project. I attended their quarterly meetings, and they have requested, small request, if they could change the webpage that we have on our website. So I made a copy. It's a small request. Just the wording is going to be a little different. So everybody has a copy, right? I think it's just the top part that they want to change. Everything else stays the same. So I don't know if we need to put a resolution for that, or,
Okay, no, I think we should have the board input on this. We'll take a look.
yeah. So that's, besides that, there was nothing else at that meeting. There was an inspection done by New York State at the lake, so I also have a copy of that inspection, some pictures,
Oh,
and some of the results of the inspector that put through, I don't know if the town yet has received a copy from them, a more detailed copy, but this was one other thing. We also...
oh, this is a letter to me from a couple weeks ago.
I believe so.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, we have this, we're on top of it.
The other thing is that we had a meeting at the Dutchess County Health Department. We attended the meeting, and there was quite a few people. At the last minute, the state DC decided not to attend, and I think that's very unprofessional on their part. But so I'm working on that to see if we could speed up the process and bring DC to the table. I mean, what I was surprised, and that the professionals don't have an actual number they could work with when chloroform levels at different times, and so we actually don't have the
Strict
state-
standards.
Right.
Yeah.
So my point is that the town and the counties, we spend money for these tests, and at the end of the day, we don't know unless the state tells us. So it was important that day for that gentleman to be there, and it was really,
He wasn't there?
no.
Okay.
So we are going to be putting pressure on him, so that-
Okay.
that's what it's at. I mean, quite a bit going on, but
If I could, I'd just like to comment on that letter. As the supervisor said, are looking into and investigating, some of the causes of the items that were, detailed in that letter, and some letters went out to residents today that we found some excavation had been done, not properly installed with erosion control, that contributed to, some of the issues that they identified. So letters went out today with regard to that. So, we encourage people that when they dig and do drainage work, that they do it in proper fashion,
Yeah.
because it can lead to problems.
So I think we're going to be good with that, so we'll wrap that up. All right, I guess that's about it for tonight.
Oh, I got one other thing.
Oh, what is that?
Councilman Franco and I did the spotlight on East Fishkill last month on the Hopewell Depot, and it is on Channel 22, and it was a great show. If everybody could take a look at that, there is a lot of good history to hear about the depot, and it was good, right, Tom?
Bernie was great.
Yeah.
We love
That
Bernie.
depot is fantastic. Oh, you know, I got, please excuse me, I did forget to do my, my liaison report. I'm liaison to the police department. I really didn't want to say anything too much. You know, our police have been involved in a very significant incident not long ago. And all I'd like to say about our police department is I can't thank them enough for the job they do. They're professional, they're courteous, and there's one thing about having your own police department, and when you're in need or something, you know the people, they know us, and they're our community people, and I'd just like to thank our police department for everything that they do. They do a great job. And that's about it. And I got to tell you, back to the depot, I got to say that is, I was at the depot last week, and what they have done is just phenomenal, and they would like to do a signal tower on the other side of the rail trail now that they're proposing, and this is a volunteer group that is just doing a fantastic job. So, very good stuff. Very good stuff. I'd like to thank you guys for getting involved. So, anything else? Anybody want to say anything else?
I just want to make one last announcement for the whole community. There is something important going on. We talk about this all the time. It's the tax election for the Wappinger School District is coming up May 20th. The community should go out and make sure they vote, because as we addressed before, over 70% of our taxes go to them,
your central school tax.
and they cost us a lot of money. So
When is the election?
May 20th.
Okay, May 20th, the Wappinger Central School Board election. Is there anything on the ballot as far as propositions?
Well, their budget this year, they went over the cap.
Okay.
They're at $212 million.
Okay.
And they're asking for some new busing and.
I would just urge everybody to get to know the issues, take a look at the ballot, see what's on the ballot. May 20th, don't forget to vote Wappinger Central School District on their budget and their propositions. Why don't we do the next meeting? All right. You okay with that? Yeah. Memorial Day is going to be, what day is Memorial Day?
26.
What is our next meeting?
26.
What is our next? Well, why don't we do it now? Better do it now. I guess we better do it. Why don't you do it? Why am I always one? Give that guy a microphone, will you?
Manny Bacon, American Legion Memorial Day Parade, Monday, May 26, 2014. Lineup, 10:30 at the East Fishkill Community Center, step off at 10:45, and the ceremony will be at 11 o'clock. Beekman and 82.
Very good. And Manny Bacon always does really, really nice with our recreation people, with the East Fishkill Community Chorus. They do a great job. So everybody, please be there. And it's a sad ceremony to remember those fallen heroes. So thank you, Peter, for bringing that up, because I'm terrible with dates. So with that,
Next meeting?
the next meeting is May 22nd. And thank you very much for attending. Marty can ask a question when we're done. Come on up when we're done, Marty.
We're done.
We're done. Come on up.